KBO on ESPN, John Sciambi, Eduardo Perez, not the other Eduardo Perez. Alex Fast joining us. I tagged the wrong at Perez Ed because I was way too excited when I sent the tweet and was an idiot. I'm sure the tagged Eduardo Perez is a nice guy, but I'm even more excited to join baseball's Eduardo Perez.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, man. I saw that. I was like, oh, we're in for a pretty darn good interview here.
What a great way to make my national broadcast debut. What a great way to start here.
That's right. I'm going to be honest with you. We looked into, as a sneak attack, what we were going to do is ask you nothing but serious questions, not show the tweet, and then with 2 outs, just bump you for the other Eduardo Perez. We were just going to say, Alex, thanks for joining us. Now we're going to be joined by the guy that you actually promoted who lives in Brazil.
I love that you bring it up, too, as if it didn't haunt my conscience every waking second after I tweeted it as well.
Buddy, no. Let's start here. You end up working for Major League Baseball, but you run a website called Pitcher List. You've done some really interesting research work. Obviously, your focus is on pitching. You guys run a cool podcast. You've been looking at the KBO a lot. You had Dan Straily on your podcast. How much have you enjoyed watching KBO baseball, and how have you managed to sort of cobble together data in order to apply it and find out sort of what's going on in this league?
Yeah, so Nick Pollock is originally the founder of Pitcher List, and he's the founder and CEO, and I've been working with him for about 5 years, and he's been great. The KBO has been an absolute blast. I mean, it's really been a godsend to be able to watch some baseball. But for a lot of fans who sometimes get fed up with baseball's kind of 3 true outcomes with the strikeouts and the home runs and the walks, the KBO is a really nice kind of step back from that, right? Because there's much more contact, there's a lot of balls in play, and there's so many more personalities to enjoy as well. Now, at first, finding data was a little bit harder, but there's so many incredible resources. I mean, you guys have talked to Dan Kurtz from My KBO. That site is just absolutely fantastic. There's other sites as well, like KB Report or status.co.kr, which you need a little bit of Google Translate to kind of get the feel for. They've got a lot of really great data, and it's helped me learn a lot about pitchers like my personal favorite, who I was hoping would go today, but I know got rained out in Chang-Mo. So I've been learning a lot because of those resources.
Now, you mentioned Chang-Mo Ko. Could you give us a little bit more about what you've learned from him, the NC Dinos pitcher that games got rained out today?
Yeah, I mean, he's just absolutely so fantastic to watch. I mean, you can look at his ERA. I think it's still below 1 to realize how fantastic a pitcher he is. His slider, in my opinion, is really MLB ready right now. A lot of people have been asking me on Twitter, is he someone who's going to make the jump to the MLB? And I think he has a chance to. I want to see a little bit of a velo bump when it comes to that fastball. He's still sitting around 89, 88. But if he gets there, if he can bump up maybe with some drive line to 91 or 92, we're ostensibly looking at a Matthew Boyd or a Patrick Corbin. That slider is so fantastic. He does a really great job of keeping hitters off balance, too. There was one at bat last game where he has a slider, a backdoor slider, a backup slider that comes in, and then a pinpoint fastball up and in. The hitter had no choice but to just back away. He's so good at keeping guys off balance. And I believe he doesn't have a single pitch that has a batting average against over 155. That's 146 on the fastball, a 108 batting average against on the slider, 154 on the curveball, and 130 on the splitter. So he's just 4-pitch arsenal, super fun to watch. I'm excited to see him grow over the coming years as well.
All right, so Alex, let's talk about the guy that's on the mound, Odrasamir Despaigne. When you look at your basic numbers, a 4.60 ERA, they aren't great. But then you start to dig a little bit. He's got a really good FIP. The strikeouts are pretty high. The walks are low. The home runs, by and large, are low. Hard hit rate is low. So how much can we sit here and say that you think that there's probably some bad luck involved and that there may be a chance that we'll see that our ERA drop a bit?
Yeah, I mean, I heard you mention this earlier in the broadcast, too, when you said I was one of 2 Orioles fans, and I'll let you know there are actually dozens of us, okay? Dozens. And, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. You know, with a league like the KBO, which is so contact-oriented, it's also going to be very BABIP-oriented, or batting average on balls in play, which you guys are, of course, familiar with. And there are elevated BABIPs in the KBO. There's a 311 league average BABIP right now through 187 games. And that means we need to rely on ERA indicators, as you mentioned earlier, to get a better idea of success. And like you said, Odor Summers-Despaign's difference between his ERA and his FIP right now is actually, I believe, second highest in the league, the second largest disparity between the two. The KBO report has a really fascinating metric called KFIP, which is FIP, but updated for the KBO's run environment, right? And I believe he's top 10 in KFIP as well. As you mentioned, he's third in hard hit rate right now with 12%. He's 12th in soft contact right now with an 18%. So when you look at his 338 BABIP, which is the 4th highest in the KBO right now, it really leads me to believe that, yeah, he's getting a little bit unlucky because of some of the shaky defense that we can see on display every once in a while. But he's got the arsenal. You know, I was taking a look at his curveball numbers on Baseball Savant, and there's not a lot of a sample size there, but he's 86th percentile in spin rate, and even more impressive, he's top 15 year over year in active spin, right? So we're not just seeing a really high spin rate in that curveball, we're seeing a lot of spin contributing to movement on that curveball. So the arsenal for him really is there.
Wow, my head is spinning right now with so many numbers you threw out. I don't know if my hard drive up here can handle all of that. I was going to ask you, when it comes to the BABIP, and you mentioned 311, that's one number that's stuck in my mind. That's what the average is right now in the KBO. What's the average? And you said it's elevated compared to Major League Baseball. What's the average in Major League Baseball?
So overall, it usually stabilizes at around 300. So that 11-point difference can be, you know, the difference between 2 or 3 or 4 hits over the course of a game. I can't say what it would be in the sample size. Like, I don't know what it would be over a 200-game sample size for the MLB, but I know that year over year in the KBO, we perpetually see higher BABIPs overall.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and you touched on it. Defense is not great over there. You know, the ability to turn balls in play into outs isn't as great as it is in MLB, and there are more balls in play. So those things together factor in. Yeah, without a doubt. But it makes for more exciting games, though. That's for sure. It makes for very exciting outcomes. But I know that sometimes pitchers can get really frustrated by that. I was tuning into Dan Straily's game earlier today, and he's been fantastic recently, but there were some defensive blunders which led to 2 runs which were ruled as earned runs, and you know that's important to know, and that's why it's important to look at FIP, right, to see where those real skills are. All right, there's the third out. Alex, stay put. We'll have more with Alex Fast from Pitcher List coming up after this. SK and KT, the Wiz with the lead. Welcome back, KBO and ESPN. John Sciambi, Eduardo Perez, Alex Fast. And you contrast 2019 MLB, 2020 KBO. And here are some of the categories. Average fastball velocity, big difference between the two leagues, about 4.5 miles an hour in terms of velo. Fewer strikeouts in the KBO. Batting average is higher. The home run rate has been kind of all over the place, Alex, when you look at what they've done with the baseball. 14-18, and the ball was bouncing out of the park, and the league slug was close to 440. Last year they dejuiced the baseball. Now the ball, it would appear, is back to a little more normal, though not 14-18 standard. What do you see when you look at some of those numbers? Yeah, I mean, I see Wilson Ramos kind of skewing all the numbers is what
is what I see. I mean, he's just been so dominant, and guys like Sungbum Nog, hitting a lot of home runs. That's kind of what I see. And I mean, it kind of makes sense to me when there's so much contact there, and when the velos are a little bit lower. But speaking of velo too, it gives a lot of room for guys like Odersammer Despaigne to have success. I mean, in many ways, he's kind of a flamethrower here. Guys like Raul Alcantara are flamethrowers over here, right? Throwing 92, 93, 94. It's kind of fun to see that different brand of pitching.
Yeah, and it's good to see Roberto Ramos get back into the lineup and really affect that lineup of the LG Twins today. But I got to go back to you being a Baltimore Oriole fan, and obviously we see the Adley Rutschman jersey in the back. We covered the draft also on ESPN, and they ended up going with Heston Kjerstad as a 2 overall pick. Were you surprised that the Baltimore Orioles did that instead of going with a popular choice of, let's say, if it's Asa Lacy or Austin Martin?
Yeah, I was, but I have a lot of faith in Mike Elias, right? I really believe in what that organization is doing. I think they have a game plan and they're sticking to it, and I'm excited to see how that game plan pans out. The one thing I was most excited about is how many names they drafted that are great to say in a Baltimore accent. Kobe Mayo is one that sticks out. Cody Bulmer is a really good one as well. I know we have Anthony Servideo. So I think when people go down to Baltimore and watch the Kobe Mayo pitch, they're going to be real excited. So I think that's great.
Oh, SPP, I'm telling you, Scott Van Pelt would love that one right there.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good right there. Alex Bass joining us here, KBO and ESPN. All right, so let me throw a nerd question at you. In this league, little bunt out in front of the plate. Oh, they get the sack executed. So the combo of the defense isn't great, but you see a lot of sinkers in the KBO.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe shouldn't do that. Or I guess I think what I want to ask is, so what's your thought? What would you tell pitchers, depending on the stuff that they have, but are there some ways that there might be more swing and miss available, or what's your take as far as that?
Oh, you are speaking my language, right? This is a conversation I've had with Michael Fisher over at Codify, who works with Dan Straily a lot. And it's something I would want to see in the MLB as well. I love to see first pitch breakers, right? I can't speak for the KBO because I don't have a lot of the data, but in the MLB, first pitch swing rates were higher than they've ever been in the history of the league. Guys are getting more aggressive. And in the KBO, we see that as well. I've heard from some sources that batters really do not want to strike out. Take advantage of that mentally. Attack them with a breaking pitch early. You don't necessarily have the velo in the KBO to be able to establish your fastball as effectively. So see if you can catch them off guard with a first pitch curveball coming in at 65 miles an hour like we've seen a lot of pitchers do. The sinkers are an interesting pitch, right? I mean, in baseball, we've seen a precipitous decline from 2015 to 2019 in terms of sinker usage, sinker and two-seamer usage, with the largest drop being between 2018 and 2019 as we went from 19% to 16% sinkers thrown. Yet we've seen a lot of foreign players in the KBO have success with their sinker. Drew Rucinski comes to mind, Aaron Brooks, even Odersammer Despaigne. Drew Rucinski threw it about 17% in Miami, and then all of a sudden he comes over to the KBO and he's throwing it about, I think, 28% of the time, but it's got a 182 batting average against. The swing plane in the KBO is a little bit flatter, right? It's what we would see in baseball a couple of years ago. So if you're just getting straight run on a pitch, it's going to run into some barrels. But in Drew Rucinski's case, it's got run and it's got a little bit of a drop, right? So at the last second, it's dropping under bats. But if you don't have that, right? If you don't have that drop and you have that straight run running into barrels with that flat swing plane, you're not going to have as much success. So, yeah, I'm hoping it kind of goes the way of the dodo like it did in Major League Baseball.
All right, there are 2 outs. Would you mind sticking around for another half inning with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Only if I can do more nerd talk. I'm all about. I'm just trying to impress Eduardo Perez, who's an inspiration for us nerds with these StatCast broadcasts.
That's right.
Oh, there we go. Mike Petriello, part of that. I love that. Now you're talking my language. Now you're speaking my language. But I must add. I'm looking at the haircut really quick. Could you turn to your left and to your right? I just need to evaluate this haircut that was done at the house.
This is the handiwork of my wife, Kristen, and she watched one tutorial on how to give a fade, and I think she nailed it. I really think she nailed it.
I think it's solid.
You definitely love her. That's good. I like that.
I do.
That's a lot better than Buster.
We're going to send Buster Olney to your house.
Yeah, he looked kind of like a Racerhead, didn't he? You know, the big mane on top.
He's moving towards Mohawk land, I think, is what he's got to at least be contemplating, Buster Olney. Alex Bass joining us. I want to get into Dan Straily a little bit because he's come over to the KBO, pitched really well. He's added a pitch. I mean, when I say added, he's using a pitch, the curveball, a little more frequently. I want to talk about that. You did mention, though, Michael Fisher from Codify, who works with a number of players. He's out in the Bay Area, works with a number of Oakland A's players, and is a super smart guy. One of the things that when he worked with Straily that helped him with is basically told him to sacrifice a little bit of velocity for a little more movement. And that has helped Dan Straily a whole heck of a lot as you get the strike out there. We'll talk about Dan Straily when we come back. Alex Bass from PitcherList.com joining us. Back with more after this. KBO update, Dan Straily on the mound for the Lotte Giants. I like those alternate blue tops. Dig those. Straily with the fastball for the strikeout as he looked sharp here in this one, and another fastball for a strikeout there. 11 punch-outs, no walks, 7 innings, 2 earned. But right now, Kiwoom leading Lotte 2-1. They're in the top of the 8th. John Sciambi, Eduardo Perez, Alex Bass joining us. You had a chance to talk to Dan Straily on your podcast, Alex, and he was a great guest. I mean, fun, interesting, really human. I just thought that the whole arc of his story was interesting, and he was fun to listen to talk.
Yeah, I mean, Nick Pollack and I, when we do on the corner podcast, we ask one question to pitchers at the end about the mental game, right? About the mental game of baseball, because we just don't feel like it's something that's discussed frequently enough. And Dan just gave one of the most vulnerable, refreshing answers that I've ever heard. And I don't want to spoil it. People should go check it out on PitcherList.com. But he talks about, what it was like, being with the Orioles last year and then the decision to come over to the KBO. He says himself, I had minor league contracts that I could have signed and I would have had to fight for that 5th spot. And I made the choice. I wanted to come over to the KBO because I knew that I was going to be able to pitch. And so far, results alone, you can see that it's just been fantastic for him. I know today, I believe he's got 11 Ks again. This is just the 7th pitching performance in the KBO with double-digit Ks in what has been about 200 games. And he's now tied his own record for most strikeouts at 11. Most strikeouts this year in a KBO performance. So he's just been fantastic, and what a great guy, too. Just I wish him so much success because I feel like he really deserves it. I want to see him succeed.
Yeah, Dan has really embraced playing in the KBO. He even takes a scooter to the ballpark. So it's he's really accepted and turned it into a positive for him being there in the KBO. What's the most surprising stat that when you look, you do a double take sometimes saying, is this possible that what I'm seeing with the numbers out of all in comparison to the numbers that you're used to seeing at the major league level?
Well, let's stick with Dan Straily, right? And the kind of new quote unquote pitch that you talked about in this curveball, which is kind of really just a tweaked grip, and we can get more into that in a second. But the most surprising stat has been it hasn't given up a hit yet. He's probably thrown about 40 of them, and it has a 0 batting average against. And that really pops out. Now, obviously, that's completely unsustainable, but 40 pitches is not a huge sample size, but that's really, really impressive, especially in a league that's familiar with curveballs. So for me, that's really exciting to see.
Getting our pitcher nerd on with Alex Fast. We really appreciate you coming on with us. I saw you also, important stuff. You tweeted something. Nick Pollock, was he really recruited for Love is Blind? And I think he should do it.
I don't think there's any question. The resounding results of the poll were, of course, and I think this kind of pressure is what we really need to put on. So Nick, if you're watching, Boog has spoken. I don't want to speak for Eduardo, but I know he would agree. It's time to see if Love is Blind.
That was an early COVID quarantine Netflix watch for me, and I tapped out about, I think, 2 episodes, and about 43 minutes in, I'd had enough.
Hey, Boog.
But I tried.
Hey, Boog, is Alex talking about, is he saying Eduardo would agree the Brazilian at Eduardo Perez, or
no, he's talking about you.
Perez at. Is he talking about me now?
You.
I just never know anymore.
You.
This hurts.
Sure.
This cuts deep to the core. This cuts deep to the core.
To quote someone really famous, I can't remember who it is, Alex, you started it.
I just want to say that Boog, the last time we talked, it was a podcast from my parents' basement. So I think that should be noted as well, that there's been an upgrade here, at least a little bit, right?
Where are you now?
I rented out someone's room. I don't know who this is, just a pure stranger. I rented it out. No, we're at
someone
my
else's
in-laws.
basement.
Yeah, exactly. No,
right,
this is
like
my father-in-law's office, and it's a very good one. I had to decorate it with my Rutschman jersey, but it's a very nice one.
Well, we appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for giving us your insight. And again, you guys do great work at pitcherlist.com, KBO daily recaps, KBO weekly recaps, and all sorts of great stuff with your podcast, and as well pitching insight. If you're into data analytics and just smart baseball stuff, check them out.
Yeah, guys, thanks so much for having me on. Shout out to that KBO team, which is doing fantastic work over at Pitcher List. And seriously, it was an honor to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, Alex Fast right there is KT, the Wiz, leading SK, the Wyverns, 5-2. John Sciambi, Eduardo Perez. Our Eduardo Perez, not Brazil's.
Hey, Boog.
Eduardo Perez.
Boog, I just figured out why he likes the haircut. He's staying at the in-laws. Of course he has to like it.
Yeah,
Come on. Good move.
That one caught at third, a line out, and that will end the inning. On to the 7th. Wiz lead.